Hey friends, so today I'll be making this battle axe from Fortnite. My nephews really love the game, so I am working on 2 axes for them. This one is fully completed and I am working on one more that just needs to be painted. This was really fun to make. I like how magical and traditional battle axey it came out, so I think it looks really cool. So let's just jump into how I made it. So first I found a straight on shot of the axe on Google. I saved it and I put it in paint.net. I made a transparent background and then I rotated it so that it would be straight up and down. This is just to save paper and to also get a good accurate resize of it. To do that, I did some math. I sized the print to the proper size. You can either do it with math or you can eyeball how big it'll be in the print preview, and then I printed it out. Once I printed it out and cut it out, I taped it all together. I prepared a PVC pipe of the same size. I don't remember how thick the PVC pipe is. It was pretty small. And then I cut off the head of the axe where the handle needs it. I also write little notes to myself so that I can remember how I'm doing certain parts. Like here, the obvious fur is fur. Yep, that's sure what it looks like. Good job, Taylor. But I just like to write little notes to myself so that I can remember how exactly I'm doing a certain part and how the layers all work. I then put the pattern on some floor mats that I won at Anime St. Louis. These aren't good for armor building, but they work really well for props. So I just pin it into the foam, trace it, cut it out, and I cut 2 of them, flipping the pattern so that it's mirrored for the other side because this is textured on one side. That's why I don't like using it for armors, because it's got that texture on it. I then take the side pieces that form the puzzle edging and I cut off the little nubs. These will be used for the middle to help sandwich the PVC pipe and to give the axe a little bit of thickness. I want the edges of the axe to form a point, but the middle to be thick. I sand any raised edges and then glue everything down. I don't glue down the PVC pipe yet, as the head of the axe is easier to handle without a giant stick sticking out of it. I carefully glue the edges together. It looks weird now, but it will be sanded to a point. I then take that pattern and then cut out all the details that I will also cut out of foam that I'll be putting on top. I put that pattern onto 4mm foam and cut it out. I cut the tiny details out with my blade, making sure to sharpen after almost every detail, as it'll need to be super sharp to get these details nice and crisp and perfect. I then glue the detailed foam onto the head of the axe. The middle looks weird, but it doesn't matter because it'll be covered with a gem and the thing that holds the gem anyway. I then sand the edges. I blend the top layer of the foam into the base. I start with a low grit Dremel bit to get the general shape down, and then I switch to a higher grit bit. That's so fun to say, a higher grit bit, to smoothen the shape of the blade. I like to use my air compressor to knock the dust off of me and my props, since there are those little details that are carved in. There will be some sanding dust stuck in there, and we don't want that because it'll catch on the plasti dip and it'll look weird and it'll flake off and the paint will flake off and it won't be fun. I then do my favorite thing ever and quick seal the seams to close them off. After that, I cut out the raised detailing out of 4mm foam and glue it on. Remember how much I talk about working in layers? Just visualize your prop or your armor and think about what piece goes on. Start with the base and build your way up, just like a house. Start with foundation and then the floors and the walls and stuff. Then you get to decorate. I clearly know how to build a house. I've played The Sims. I have years of Sims. Okay, I know what I'm doing. I sand the edges again after the quick seal dries. Next, I sit here with a square for about 5 minutes. No joke, I was holding this longer, but I did have to edit it a little bit. It's just the top part that holds the little wooden plug, I guess. I have no idea why I was holding it for so long. I think I was watching something. Or the aliens were contacting me. To close the middle part, I just patterned my 4mm foam onto it and cut it out and then glued it on. I did make it a little bit bigger so that it bulged a little bit, as the middle does bulge out. Next, I closed the top by making my own pattern. Taped it with some masking tape, drew on the pattern, cut it out, put it on foam, and cut that out. Then I heated up that piece of foam and glued it on. I double checked that the wooden foam plug would look okay on top and then glued the foam plug to the base that it will sit on. The foam plug is just a piece of 10mm foam that I cut in an imperfect circle at an angle. With more sanding, I was just blending the part that closed the top of the axe in with the head. Next, I finally glued the PVC pipe into the head of the axe. The same way I closed the top, I did with the bottom. I used masking tape to make a pattern, put it on 4mm foam, and glued it on. There is a tiny gap, but I later filled it in with foam clay, and there is a little round thing that goes under the head anyway to help hide it a little bit more. So here I am cutting out the piece that holds the gem, which I did make in my foam clay video if you are interested. It's just a video about foam clay. I love this stuff, it works really well, and I made these cute little gems and they're awesome. They're obviously not like real like resin gems like I would normally do. I'm going for a more cartoony paint style, not realistic. I then glued that to the middle of the axe. This was the round part that I was talking about that goes underneath the head of the axe. It's just 8mm foam with a 4mm foam on top and the details carved out. There's also some spikes next to it that I made out of foam clay that I later glue on. After all that, I put on the pommel with some more foam, and then I give everything 2 coats of Plasti Dip. For paint, I'm airbrushing on a few layers of this metallic paint. This is where everything took the longest because I did slap a bunch of layers of paint onto here, but it took me one day to get from Plasti Dipped to completed. It was just a lot of waiting for the paint to dry. Next, I dirtied it up a bit with a dark metallic brown. I wanted it to look like old and something you'd find in a cave just waiting for you to grab, but I don't even think Fortnite has caves. I think the whole premise is like you building things, right? Like, I don't know. Would you find this in a cave? Someone tell me the history of this axe. Next, I dry brush a highlight color onto the edges just to make it look a little bit shiny. Dry brushing is when you have just a teeny tiny bit of paint on your brush. Most of it's wiped off, and you gently kind of just tap the colors where you want it to be. For me, I'm just doing the edges where the light would be most reflective. Next, I airbrush a light blue onto the edges. This axe looks like it has a lot of fun magic around it, so I really wanted to capture that. Later, I do go in with some white and even darker blue, just to kind of make it look like it's glowing. Next, I tape off the round middle part of the axe, and I paint it this cream color, and there's some peel porn, although first time I taped it down a little bit of the paint escaped sadly, so it's not as satisfying. The other side came out perfect though. Alright, so for the handle, there is a leather grip that goes around it, so I took a piece of pleather from my Skyrim cosplay, and I airbrushed the very top of it because I wanted to get that cartoony shadow in, so I just airbrushed the top of it with a very, very light gray. And then here's me touching up the edges just to give it more magic. And then I airbrushed the sides of that cream middle part with some gray just to give it a little more depth and keep it from looking too perfect. After that, I go in and hand paint all of my little mistakes that I made since my tape job wasn't perfect. And then I paint all of those little details with a blue. As you can see, I'm getting it on the edges here. I actually clean that up later with the axe color just because I want it just on the bottoms of the details, not on the sides there. I go in also with some white just to make it even more like it's going. Look, it looks like a cloud in there, like, oh. I also try and paint the gems as much as possible to make them look like it's a cartoony yet somewhat realistic gem. There's also some fur on the handle, so I took some fur that I had laying around and I just airbrushed that with a little bit of gray. For the wooden plug at the top, I draw the little pattern on with a pencil. After I've already painted it like an ombre brown, I go in with my dark brown and darken up the little wooden details. So my camera angles are so bad you can't ever see what I'm doing. But here I'm just wrapping the pleather around the handle. And then here I am tacking down the fur with my hot glue. There's a little leather strip at the bottom of the axe that holds this spike looking thing. So here I'm just kind of messing with designs and stuff, and my camera, this was at the end of the painting day when I was finishing everything up, and my camera was like, I just can't go on any further. I actually don't seal the paint. The only things I do seal is the gem and the inner parts, and all of the blue parts. All of those will get sealed with a fingernail polish, a clear fingernail polish. I want it to be really reflective and shiny, but I don't want anything else on the axe to be shiny because I want that true metallic paint color. And that's it, and it's done. I had a lot of fun making this, but I hope you guys really like this video. I do have a written tutorial for this available on my Patreon if you're more of a reader. Speaking of which, thank you so much to my patrons Adam Hunt, Aliar, Anime Crush, Anon, Blue Panda, Calvin Lewis, David Rosenbaum, Eric, Franz, Jenny Lynn, Jim W, John Doe, Kalika Kaiser, Kate Williams, Logan Don Carlos, Lord Kenway, Maus Murden, Masamune, Mur Kitten, Nathan M, Ninja Ruki, Nanaman, Rob Thompson, Robert Gallardo Jr., Rusty Shackelford, Sakura, Valdemir, and Yandere Dream Girl. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a super awesome rest of the day. Go do awesome creative things, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!